Section 18 of Journal of the Reverend Francis Asbury, Volume 2. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Brian Keenan. Thursday, 8. Having taken cold and had my rest broken, I went to bed to bring on a free perspiration, and from this I received relief. My soul breathed unto God, and I was exceedingly happy in his love. Some individuals among the preachers having their jealousies about my influence in the conference, I gave the matter wholly up to them, and to Dr. Coke, who presided. Meantime I sent them the following letter. My dear brethren, let my absence give you no pain. Dr. Coke presides. I am happily excused from assisting to make laws by which myself am to be governed. I have only to obey and execute. I am happy in the consideration that I never stationed a preacher through enmity, or as a punishment. I have acted for the glory of God, the good of the people, and to promote the usefulness of the preachers. Are you sure that, if you please yourselves, the people will be as fully satisfied? They often say, "Let us have such a preacher," and sometimes we will not have such a preacher. We will sooner pay him to stay at home. Perhaps I must say, his appeal forced him upon you. I am one, ye are many. I am as willing to serve you as ever. I want not to sit in any man's way. I scorn to solicit votes. I am a very trembling, poor creature to hear praise or dispraise. Speak your minds freely, but remember, you are only making laws for the present time. It may be that as in some other things, so in this, a future day may give you further light. I am yours, etc., Francis Asbury. I am not fond of altercations. We cannot please everybody, and sometimes not ourselves. I am resigned. Mr. O'Kelly, being disappointed in not getting an appeal from any station made by me, withdrew from the connection and went off. For himself, the conference well knew he could not complain of the regulation. He had been located to the South District of Virginia for about 10 succeeding years, and upon his plan might have located himself and any preacher or set of preachers to the district, whether the people wished to have them or not. The General Conference went through the discipline, articles of faith, forms of baptism, matrimony, and the burial of the dead, as also the offices of ordination. The conference ended in peace, after voting another General Conference to be held 4 years hence. By desire of my brethren, I preached once on 1 Peter 3:8. My mind was kept in peace, and my soul enjoyed rest in the stronghold. Thursday, 15. I was comforted at the women's class meeting. I appointed 3 prayer meetings for them, Sisters K, O, and F, to be the leaders of them. If this is regularly attended to, I think good will follow. Friday, 16. I left Baltimore, and, contrary to my first intention, called on the widow H., whose daughter was awakened the last time I was here, and still continues to be happy in the Lord. I met the sisters here, and urged prayer meeting. Perhaps it was for this I unexpectedly came here. Virginia, Saturday, 17. Brother Ira Ellis and myself came on to Georgetown, and thence to Alexandria, making a ride of 40 miles. Here the preachers were waiting for the district conference. Sunday, 18. I preached in our small, neatly finished house. Monday, 19. We had a close sitting in conference, and completed our work in 1 day. Tuesday, 20. We set out southwardly. The day was very stormy, and we had a gale in crossing the river at Colchester, and came to our newly made friend Ward's, near Dumfries. Wednesday, 21. 6 of us set out, and rode 53 miles to D. Dickinson's, in Caroline County. So much for an American episcopos. Traveling in such haste, I could not be as much in mental prayer as I desired, although I enjoyed many moments of sweet converse with God. The mischief has begun. Brother Blank called here and vented his sorrows, and told what the General Conference had done. I was closely employed in reading The Curse of Divisions and my Hebrew Bible. Sunday, 25. Came to Manchester and preached in the afternoon, and felt life amongst the people and the preachers who were met for the district conference. I met the preachers in band, and found their fears were greatly removed. Union and love prevailed, and all things went on well. W. M. Kendry and R. H. sent me their resignation in writing. We agreed to let our displeased brethren still preach among us, and as Mr. O'Kelly is almost worn out, the conference acceded to my proposal of giving him his £40 per annum. Footnote, for a part of that year he received it, but refused, and left us to form a new and pure church. End of footnote. As when he traveled in the connection, provided he was peaceable, and forbore to excite divisions among the brethren. The General Conference and the district conferences have kept us a long time from our work. But after all Satan's spite, I think our sifting and shaking will be for good. I expect a glorious revival will take place in America, and thousands be brought to God. Thursday, 29. Came to Petersburg. Myself and several others preached during our stay. Saturday, December 1. I had a few attentive hearers at Brother Bonner's, of whom I inquired, "Where is the blessedness ye spake of?" Sunday, 2. Rode 15 miles to G.'s chapel, where we had a full house, and I felt life and love in speaking to the young people. I lodged with Brother G., and was very much moved to lay a plan for a district school. Monday, 3. Preached at R.'s chapel. Cold house and languid people. Came to Brother Cox's in the evening. I am not conscious of inward or outward sin, yet I do not feel that inward life I wish. I have lately read our Cure of Church Divisions, and much of the Word of God. Tuesday, 4. Preached at Mabry's chapel, and the next day at J. Mason's, where we had a full house and a comfortable time. Thursday, 6. Rode through the rain to Edward Drumgold's. Here I found a few friends, and formed a constitution for a district school, which, with a little alteration, will form a general rule for any part of the continent. Saturday, 8. I once more visited Owen Myrick, whose wife is gone, and from all we can learn departed in a good old age, in triumph to glory. The dear old man is much dispirited. We spent the evening together very solemnly, remembering the occurrences of 19 years ago, now gone as yesterday, short as the watch that ends the night before the rising sun. The cause of his slaves was not forgotten. Sunday, 9. I came once more to Roanoke Chapel, and gave them a discourse on Ephesians 2:13. R. and I. Ellis gave an exhortation. I met the society. We then rode 6 miles, and got to our quarters about sunset. Monday, 10. We crossed Roanoke at Black's Ferry, and directed our course for Lewisburg. We passed Warrington, and missed our way. We remembered the name of William Myrick, and inquiring after him, found he lived nearly on our way. We accordingly called on him, and were gladly received, and kindly entertained. Memory is good in distress. Had we not housed here, we should have had our difficulties in getting to Sister L's. Tuesday, 11. Rode to H's near Lewisburg. Here I met the preachers in conference, and we were closely employed until Saturday morning. We had about 40 preachers from the 2 districts in North Carolina. Our labors finished, we rode to Neuse River. Sunday, 16, preached at Merritt's. Monday, 17. Rode 15 miles to S's. Preached on Christ, the believer's wisdom, righteousness, sanctification, and redemption. We had a difficult road in going to Haw River, but a kind providence brought us along very well, although the weather was exceedingly cold. We crossed the stream by fording about 8:30, and about 10 arrived at Ars, very cold and in much pain. I know not why, but so it is, that I cannot feel that I hold such sweet communion with God in cold weather as in warm. It may be that, nature being oppressed, commands the mind to suffer with the body. The great love and union which prevailed at the late conference makes me hope many souls will be converted in the ensuing year. An account was brought in of the conversion of about 300 souls last week within its limits, chiefly in the lowland circuits. Glory be to God. I feel that He is with us, and I have good evidence that 1,500 or 1,800 souls have professed to have been converted in the United States within the last 12 months. At Rainey's, a congregation of willing, patient souls was called hastily together, to whom I preached on 2 Peter 1:4. I was led out on the corruption that is in the world, arising from 3 grand sources: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life. Wednesday, 19. I was detained until about 10 o'clock, and then rode on to S's and dined. We then hastened on to Deep River and lodged at Mr. B's. Lord, show kindness to those who have succored me. Thursday, 20. I took a route along a new path below the narrows of PD, and after riding 45 or 50 miles, came in, cold and hungry, about 7 o'clock, and found a congregation waiting. I was fatigued, and could say but little to them. Friday, 21. I rode 30 miles to Rocky River, had few to hear. Saturday, 22. The people were attentive and behaved well at Anson Courthouse. In the evening we had a weary ride to Brother Jackson's. Sunday, 23. We attended from 10 till 1 o'clock in a house built of poles. Here were light and ventilators plenty. We rode this evening 20 miles to Mr. Blakeney's. The rain caught us in the woods, and we were well steeped. Arriving, we found a good house, table, and bed, which was some relief to weather-beaten pilgrims. Christmas Eve. We rode in the rain 25 miles to our kind brother Horton's, and found many people had gathered. South Carolina, Christmas Day. Although the weather was cold and damp, and unhealthy, with signs of snow, we rode 45 miles to dear Brother Rembert's, kind and good, rich and liberal, who has done more for the poor Methodists than any man in South Carolina. The Lord grant that he, with his whole household, may find mercy in that day. Wednesday, 26. Preached at quarterly meeting on 1 Peter 4:13. I was pleased to hear the young men exhort and sing after sacrament. I felt uncommonly melted. Tears involuntarily burst from my eyes. God was there. Thursday, 27. I had a long cold ride of 45 miles to Brother Bowman's near Santee. I was overtaken on my way by rain mingled with hail, which ended in snow, covering the ground 6 or 8 inches deep. The unfinished state of the houses, lying on the floor, thin clothing, and inclement weather keep me in a state of indisposition. Friday, 28. We had to cross Santee and ride 35 miles to dear Sister Browings's. The weather still very cold. Saturday, 29. Rode 33 miles to Charleston and found our little flock in peace, and a small revival amongst them. Mr. Hammett has raised a grand house, and has written an appeal to the British Conference. He represents Dr. Coke as a sacrilegious tyrant and murderer. I have no doubt but the doctor will be able to make good his cause. As to Hammett, time will show the man and the people who have made lies their refuge. Sunday, 30. Brother I.S. preached in the forenoon. In the afternoon I said a little on Isaiah 9:6-7. The blacks were hardly restrained from crying out aloud. Oh, that God would bless the wild and wicked inhabitants of this city. I'm happy to find that our principal friends have increased in religion. Accounts from Philadelphia are pleasing. Souls are converted to God. There is also a move in New York, and their numbers are daily increasing. On reviewing the labors of the last 6 weeks, I find we have rested about 14 days at conferences and ridden at least 700 miles. January 3, 1793. From Wednesday, December 26, to this day, Sunday excepted, we sat in conference in this city. Friday 4. I was unwell, yet I set out and reached Mr. G's on Edisto River. A few people met me here in the evening, but I was unwell and weary and sleepy and very unfit for public exercise. Saturday 5. Rode 50 miles to Ars and rested on the Sabbath. I had a meeting with 8 or 10 souls. The people in these parts are much given up to sin. They have a little charity for the Baptists, but none at all for the Methodists. Monday 7. We rode 37 miles to Tees, where, had we not begged and promised to pay well for it, I know not if we should have been taken in. Georgia, Tuesday 8. We passed Augusta and rode 37 miles to H's, where we were treated kindly. Thence next day to Washington, 44 miles. I was taken ill at Brother M's. Thursday 10. Met our dear brethren in conference. We had great peace and union. The Carolina preachers came up to change with those in Georgia. All things happened well. Bless the Lord, O my soul. We now agreed to unite the Georgia and South Carolina conferences, to meet in the fork of Saluda and Broad Rivers on the 1st of January, 1794. Our sitting ended in exceeding great love. Sabbath 13. We had sacrament, love feast, and ordination. I felt very serious, and was very pointed on Acts 20, 26, 27. I have now had an opportunity of speaking in Washington. Most of the people attended to hear this man that rambles through the United States. In due time I shall, with permission, visit Georgia. Monday 14. I preached in the new house at Grant's on He that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. 1. The Christian soldier has to overcome the world, sin, and the devil with his temptations. 2. He fights under the banner of Christ, who is the captain of his salvation. 3. His armor is described by St. Paul, Ephesians 6. 4. His inheritance, Christian tempers, and the things promised to the 7 churches, and finally glory, will be his God, giving him wisdom, truth, love. He shall be my son. A son partakes of the nature and property of the Father, and doeth his will. So it is with those who are the children of God. Our dear Georgia brethren seem to think some of us shall visit them no more. They appear to be much humbled, and will not give up the traveling preachers. I am now bound for Savannah, where I may see the former walks of a dear Wesley and Whitefield, whom I hope to meet in the New Jerusalem. Wednesday 16. We had to swim Long Creek. We had few to hear at H's, but they felt the word, and we had a good time. When the weather is open and the sun shines, the days are generally warm in this country, but the nights are cold and the house is open. Saturday 19. Was taken up in reading Osterwald's Christian Theology. It is simple, plain, and interesting. Sunday 20. I preached at Bethel on Peter 2, 24-25. I had a full congregation, and great freedom in speaking. The house was a miserable one. Wednesday 23. I came to Buckhead. A few people had gathered, to whom I gave an exhortation. Reached Jay's, making it 33 miles without refreshment, being out from 7 to 7 o'clock again. Friday, 25. I rode 15 miles to my very loving friend Brother D's. Here my mind was exercised with what I heard and felt. Mr. Matthews wrote Brother D he had been taught my iniquity, to which Mr. H, his brother, gave his sanction. And why was I thus charged? Because I did not establish Mr. Wesley's absolute authority over the American connection. For myself, this I had submitted to. But the Americans were too jealous to bind themselves to yield to him in all things relative to church government. Mr. Wesley was a man they had never seen, was 3,000 miles off. How might submission in such a case be expected? Brother Coke and myself gave offense to the connection by enforcing Mr. Wesley's will in some matters, for which I do not blame Mr. Wesley. Like other great men, he had his elbow friends, and like other people, I had my enemies. Tuesday, 29. We reach Savannah. Next day I rode 12 miles along a fine sandy road to view the ruins of Mr. Whitefield's orphan house. We found the place, and having seen the copper plate, which I recognized, I felt very awful. The wings are yet standing, though much injured, and the schoolhouse still more. It is reported that Mr. Whitefield observed, whilst eating his last dinner in the house, "This house was built for God, and cursed be the man that puts it to any other use." The land for the support of the school is of little value, except 2 rice plantations, which we passed in our route. I returned to Savannah, and preached on Luke 19:10 to a serious people, with whom I had liberty. Friday, February 1. I came to Ebenezer, and had a pleasing interview with Mr. Bergman. He cannot speak much English. The Lord has certainly something in design for this man, more than to be buried in this place. We rode through rice plantations for nearly 2 miles, and were entangled in the swamp. Oh, how dreadful to be here in the dark! Saturday, 2. I am not enough in prayer. I have said more than was for the glory of God concerning those who have left the American connection, and who have reviled Mr. Wesley, Mr. Fletcher, Dr. Coke, and poor me. Oh, that I could trust the Lord more than I do, and leave his cause wholly in his own hands. This being Saturday, we rest to read and write, having ridden since Monday morning about 124 miles. I reflect upon the present ruin of the orphan house, and taking a view of the money expended, the persons employed, the preachers sent over, I was led to inquire, where are they, and how has it sped? The earth, the army, the Baptists, the church, the independents, have swallowed them all up at this windmill end of the continent. A wretched country this. But there are souls, precious souls, worth worlds. I was offered the use of the courthouse to preach in, but the night being cold and windy prevented. I preached at Mr. M's. We want a house here, which I expect we shall obtain. I suppose there are 500 houses of all sorts, and if I guess well, about 2,000 inhabitants. There is one Lutheran church with perhaps 50 or 60 members. Goshen Church is about 40 by 25, well finished. Mr. B and the congregation have given it to us, on condition that we supply them with preaching on Sabbath days, once in 2 or even 3 weeks. I lodged at our kind W's, crossed the Savannah at the sister ferry, and came on to Black Swamp, and in the dark got pretty well scratched by the trees. South Carolina, Sunday, 3. Preached at Black Swamp Church on 2 Corinthians 3:9. The subject was pointed, and the people were attentive. End of section 18. Recording by Brian Keenan.